Those absent, Rowe, Bigley, Harding. Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for the pledge and remarks by Councilmember Nelson.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone can have a seat. I was gonna announce and congratulate Bud Crawford, but I think we even went further. We're gonna do a proclamation here in a minute. So I think we're all very excited about that big win and having Omaha at the front and center there with him promoting our great city and then winning such a big title. And so I look forward to that proclamation in a few minutes, but I would like to give another congratulations, but the congratulation goes to Mount Calvary Community Church. They're located at 51st and Ames. They just celebrated their 90th anniversary.
I'm not sure what that was, but if that was a cell phone, please turn it to please turn it off.
Maybe they were just shouting out congratulations to Mount Calvary, so we'll take it as that. But I wanted to just let everyone know that Reverend Bishop K. Jawan Chambers was the 5th pastor to be elected in a line of long-serving pastors who've provided spiritual service to our community. Kind of a little side note here, they were the first to use an electric organ and percussion in their worship services. But I just want to give just a special thanks and shout out to Bishop and Lady Chambers for their dedication to their church and our community. And congratulations on 90 years of serving our community. I actually attended their celebration, wonderful attendance. Bishops came in from all over the country to celebrate with them. So sometimes we don't always get to hear about those celebrations. We hear about Bud Crawford, but we don't get to hear about some of those celebrations that are happening right here in our community. So shout out to Mount Calvary. If you think about it, send them a little note saying congratulations, because everybody could use a little note in the mail. All we ever get is emails anymore. I love it when you get a little note in the mail. So if you have some time, Mount Calvary Community Church at 51st and Ames. Thanks.
Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today. Look forward to hearing from you on our many items. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones off, or at least to vibrate. And before we get started with our regular agenda, we do have 2 proclamations, both of which will be read by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to thank Councilmember Melton for those kind words of encouragement to the community. We do need to hear those words from time to time. On to the proclamation. Whereas the City Council of Omaha recognizes and celebrates the life and legacy of Dr. Danetta Webb, a remarkable individual whose contributions have left an indelible mark on our community. And whereas Dr. Danetta Webb's unwavering commitment to spreading positivity and uplifting others has touched the hearts of countless residents, inspiring us to strive for greatness and embrace a spirit of unity. And whereas her boundless energy and infectious enthusiasm for life has brought joy to those around her, creating a ripple effect of positivity that continues to resonate throughout our city. And whereas Dr. Danetta Webb's dedication to promoting education, health, and well-being has made a lasting impact on the lives of many, leaving behind a powerful legacy of empowerment and hope. And whereas, as we gather to celebrate her homegoing ceremony, we do so with gratitude in our hearts for the love, laughter, and positive vibes she shared with us during her time on this earth. And whereas we, the City of Omaha, join hands with our community to honor and cherish the memory of Dr. Danita Webb, remembering her with smiles and fond memories. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Omaha proclaims August 2nd, 2023, as a day of joyful remembrance and celebration of the life of Dr. Danita Webb, encouraging all residents to come together in a positive and upbeat manner to commemorate her exceptional journey. We celebrate her homegoing ceremony with the spirit of unity, love, and positivity, knowing that her legacy will forever be woven into the fabric of our vibrant city. In witness thereof, the City Council of Omaha has set its hand and caused the official seal of the city to be affixed this August 1st, 2023. Moving on to our second proclamation in honor of Bud Crawford. Whereas the City Council of Omaha is honored to recognize and celebrate extraordinary achievements within our community. And whereas on July 29th, 2023, the renowned boxer Terrence Bud Crawford achieved an awe-inspiring victory, demonstrating unparalleled skill, determination, and sportsmanship. And whereas Bud Crawford's remarkable journey from a local talent to a world-class boxing champion has been an inspiration to our citizens, particularly the youth, instilling in them the values of hard work, perseverance, and dedication. And whereas Bud Crawford's triumphant win on this momentous day has brought immense pride to the City of Omaha, showcasing our city's exceptional sporting proudness to a global audience. And whereas his victory serves as a unifying force, uniting residents of all backgrounds in celebration, further strengthening the sense of community and pride in our city. And whereas the City Council wishes to express its deepest appreciation and admiration for Bud Crawford's outstanding representation of Omaha and extends its warmest congratulations on his historic achievement, now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Omaha hereby proclaims June 30th, 2023 as Bud Crawford Big Win Day and encourages all residents to join in celebrating this extraordinary accomplishment. We recommend Bud Crawford for his unparalleled talent, dedication, and contribution to the sporting world, and we wish him continued success in all his future endeavors. In witness whereof, the City Council of Omaha has set its hand and caused the official seal of city to be affixed this August 1st, 2023. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. And if I might also just add my personal condolences to the Webb family and Danita and to Richard, whom you all may know as Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club. We've really appreciated their entire family's contributions to our community. And then what more can be said about Bud Crawford other than that was truly an amazing display of talent and dominance. We've had him to the City Council in these chambers before to honor him. We have a Terrence Crawford Street, but this was truly next level, so we'll have to up our game as well as a city and recognize him. And I know those plans are in the works. And always great to still see him rocking those Omaha trunks. What a great ambassador for our community. Madam Clerk.
Item 6, a resolution to remove Vinnie Palermo as a council member for District 4.
The vote on number 6 today, this is not a public hearing. This is a matter of due process. We'll have a brief presentation from the city attorney, Mr. Kuzy.
Matt Kuzy, City of Omaha Law Department. The item before you, item number 6, is the resolution to remove Vinnie Palermo from the District 4 council seat that he currently currently occupies. With regard to that matter, I'm prepared to offer to the council the following exhibits to take into consideration. The first is what's been marked as exhibit number 1. This is section 2.05 of the City of Omaha's Home Rule Charter that indicates that a council member may be removed from office by being absent from regular council meetings for 3 consecutive calendar months without being excused by the council. Exhibit number 1 goes on to say that the council shall be the judge of and be responsible for removing by resolution a council member from office for any of the reasons contained in section 2.05. The next is what I've marked as exhibit number 2. This is an entry of appearance by W. Randall Paragas in the case of Aubrey Palermo versus Vincent Palermo. This document is being offered to show that W. Randall Paragas is the attorney for Mr. Palermo. Exhibit number 3 is a letter dated July 25th, 2023 from the Omaha City Council signed by Council President Pete Festerson informing Mr. Paragas on behalf of Mr. Palermo of today's hearing, which indicates that today on August 1st at 2:00 p.m. this hearing will occur. Exhibit number 3 was hand-delivered by to Mr. Paragas, by a member of the City of Omaha's Law Department. Exhibit number 4 is the oath of office taken by Vinnie Palermo on June 7th, 2021, when he was re-elected to his position. Lastly is exhibit number 5, which is the journal record from meetings from April 25th through July 25th to show that 3 consecutive months of regular council meetings, Councilman Palermo has been absent from it. The journal indicates that Mr. Palermo was not present at the roll call at the beginning of each meeting. Also, exhibit number 5 indicates on the record of any votes of any matters that were taken up by the council that Mr. Palermo was not present to vote. I'm going to offer to the council all exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to consider in this matter. These exhibits indicate that Mr. Palermo has met the conditions of section 2.05 of the charter, and that is why the resolution is before the council today. I will take any questions at the appropriate time from the council.
Thank you for that background and for the legal basis of what we're doing here today. I would now allow an opportunity for Mr. Palermo or his attorney to be heard. Let the record reflect Mr. Palermo nor his attorney are in attendance at the meeting today. I'll then take a point of privilege as president to address this issue, then we'll see if council members have other questions or remarks as well. Let me say that this has been a difficult time for the City Council, and I know it's been a difficult time for the residents of District 4. As a 4-term City Council member and a 3-term City Council president, I care deeply about the integrity of this body and how the city conducts its business. As outlined by Mr. Kuzy, I believe it's our duty today to act in accordance with the City Charter Section 205 that addresses unexcused absences. This is not a determination of guilt or innocence today, but it does require us to be in compliance with that section of the City Charter. The Law Department's interpretation is that the last 3 months of absences are unexcused, and I agree with that interpretation. So I notified Mr. Palermo and his representatives of this violation last week, and I'm prepared to act upon it today. Some would have liked to have seen a vote to vacate the seat sooner than that, but I want everyone to understand that we're obligated to follow the city charter in these matters and state laws regarding these matters. And in accordance with those laws, this was the earliest opportunity we had to address this issue and by which we could take action. Similarly, we must follow the city charter and the state law, which prescribe that our new member must be appointed by the remaining 6 members of the council, should this seat be vacated today. So following this vote, I will detail an open and transparent and public process we're prepared to announce today to restore representation to District 4 as soon as possible. I'll speak more to that here in a little bit, but I first want to thank City Council staff and my fellow City Council members for working together during this time to to address issues in South Omaha on our agenda and to work with constituents in South Omaha that had issues or needed attention. I know I spent a lot of time on it and a lot of time in South Omaha as well. So at this time, I'd request a motion to approve this resolution that would remove Councilman Palermo from office and officially vacate the seat.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would just like to add more clarity to this body, to the city of Omaha, more particularly to people within my community as it relates to defining what unexcused absence is. Defining unexcused absences during city council meeting is crucial to establish standards, attendance standards, ensure accountability, and maintain transparency. Clear guidelines will help council members understand the consequences of missing meetings without valid reasons, fostering responsible participation and effective decision-making for the betterment of the city governance. So at this time, Matt, if you could please offer the clarity regarding how we arrived at unexcused absence in this instance.
Matt Cusey, City of Omaha Law Department. While the charter does not find excused or unexcused, I think that you would find in many other similar situations in our state statutes and our ordinances, not every single term is or can be defined. That is why the council and the city has a law department where that advice can be offered and presented. In this circumstance, I would say two things. One, I think it's within the discretion of the council chair who is elected to this position to determine whether absences are excused or unexcused. Secondly, I think it's incumbent upon the person requesting the excuse to make that request. To date, I am unaware of any attempt or any excuse that Mr. Palermo has made to this council to ask to be excused, whether in writing or through a representative or anything like that. I think when an excuse is being sought to miss a meeting, whether you're sick or on vacation or car broke down, something like that, that would be considered an excuse and that would be conveyed. But if someone is not going to make the request that their absence be excused, then it stands to reason that they have no basis to complain that their absence is unexcused.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just wanted to be clear in my comments that as the President stated that we are following the city charter, the Constitution, and state law. In serving with Mr. Palermo for 2 years, Councilman Palermo, I will just say that he was always helpful when I had an issue that I needed to discuss regarding constituents or city services. He was always helpful in making me a better councilman, reaching out to constituents. Is evident by the charges and the challenges he's facing legally. I will just say that I will continue to pray for Vinny and his family as they go through this, because it's a tough ordeal, not only for the city and District 4, but also his personal family, what they're going through. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Melton.
Thank you, and I would concur. I think this has been very difficult for everyone. This isn't something that the allegations are such that will be worked out in federal court, but there's enough there that the federal court has chosen not to release Mr. Palermo pending his trial. We aren't here today to determine whether or not any of those allegations are true, whether there's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. We're simply sitting here as a body wanting to have representation for District 4, because District 4 constituents deserve to have representation. We've had to replace council members twice in just kind of the recent
decade or so. The last one was Rich Pauls, who took a higher position, which is addressed in 2.05. But then Chuck Segerson, who I think would still be serving, as long as he possibly could have. I think he would have continued to be reelected. He was loved by District 7, but he suffered a stroke and was unable to come to meetings. It was very difficult, I think, for the council, but even though that to no fault of his own, once he missed the 6 months of meetings, the council then had to vote to remove him. And I think President Festerson was here, and that was a very difficult time for the council. And so even when you have a council member that was as loved as Councilmember Segerson, there comes a time when the district and the representatives the district needs representation. And if you're not capable of actually doing the job that you took your oath of office to take, and part of that oath, it states to perform the duties of office. One of our main duties is actually just to show up. People always say that's, in life, 90% of it is showing up. So just showing up for the meetings and voting. You also need to be able to respond to the residents in your district. And so regardless of the reasons at this point, since Councilman Palermo has neither requested that his absences be excused, and since he has not shown up at any meetings and it doesn't appear that he will be capable of attending anymore, it's imperative that this council start the process of replacing Councilman Palermo for the members of District 4. And so that is why I seconded the motion in support of this today.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. I said some of this last week, but I think a lot of it bears repeating. So I'd first state that the resolution, and it was very, I think, having the city attorney get up and present the exhibits as well as what we are acting upon, talk about what we're acting on today. And whether or not you think the absences were excused or unexcused, the resolution certainly and simply states that these absences are not excused. So if you have a different opinion that they are excused, then vote your conscience in that manner. But the resolution clearly states that what the body is acting on is that these absences are unexcused and therefore has met the definition of removal in section 2.05 of the city charter, being that 3 months of meetings have been missed with unexcused absences, and that's simply what the resolution says. As was stated before, this is not a determination of innocence or guilt. That will be for the courts to decide. But what we are deciding on here today is that the obligations and the responsibilities to which this council person was elected to serve his district cannot be met going forward. It's been 3 months since this process started. As Council President Festerson said, this is the quickest that we could act upon this. And we are taking those appropriate actions immediately so that the people of District 4 have representation. Again, it's been 3 months that they have been without. I said this last week, and others have said it here today. We've picked up the mantle and the lurch as best we could, both the city council members, and I called out the council staff last week, and I'll do it again. And it has been stated earlier today, they have done a lot of heavy lifting to make sure the people of District 4 had responses to questions or concerns, and their issues and their interests became our issues and our interest. And unfortunately now, when this process is to be unveiled as to how long it will take to fill this vacancy, it will likely be another 2 months. So for 5 months, at least, District 4 will have gone without representation, and that's far too long. And it was said earlier today that we appeared to be chomping at the bit to replacing Vinnie Palermo or taking him off of City Council. But you know who's chomping at the bit? Is District 4. They want representation. And so we are to begin that process, assuming that this resolution passes. We are to begin that process today. But I want everyone to know, have realistic expectations, as it will take the better part of 2 months to fill this. So this is not a happy day. Not a happy day for Omaha. But like we have challenges in our lives, both in our family or at our places of business, we will move on from that. And I hope when we seat the next person to fill this spot, we will work together for the betterment of Omaha, because that's what we were elected to do. That is our responsibility, and we will fulfill that responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to concur and voice my support for the words that have already been spoken. It is a solemn day. It's not a day that we look forward to. Honestly, last December was not a good day. Last April was not a good day. It's a tough day, but we're here to do our job, and I'm ready to do that and make a vote on my conscience, and I feel like it's warranted. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
The seat is now officially vacated. As is required by city charter and state law, the council will now proceed with an appointment process to fill the seat. As we speak, information about the process and associated requirements and deadlines are being made available to the public and to the media, and will be available on the City Council's website and the City Clerk's office by the end of today. In summary, we'll be accepting cover letters, resumes, and application forms from qualified electors of District 4. That means registered voters who have resided in District 4 for at least 6 months. And we encourage anyone interested to apply. Completed applications will be due to the City Clerk by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, August 15th. So applicants will have about 2 weeks from today to submit their interest. Credentials will be verified and background checks will be performed. City Council will identify candidates for public interviews, and those interviews will take place in this chamber and be broadcast to the public starting at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 7th. We anticipate a selection and a public vote on our new member at our Tuesday meeting, September 12th, during our regular meeting. So that would outlines a process of about 45 to 60 days by which a new member can be seated and sworn in. It'll be a thorough and thoughtful process, but also done with urgency, as we know it's important to restore our representation to District 4 as soon as possible, and it's important that the City Council get back to full strength. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item 7, to consider a Class C liquor license for Hokkaido Ramen House located at 1303 South 72nd Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom. Thought we did, maybe we don't. Is Mr. Schneider in? There he is. He's here in person, even better. Come on down.
Hello.
Hi. Name and address, please.
My name is John Schneider. Our address is 1303 South 72nd Street, Suite 101.
Okay. I'm just here to answer questions.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
please.
Any other proponents on number 7? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks. Thank you,
I-
guys.
Item 8, to consider a Class C liquor license for Oklahoma Joe's Elkhorn, located at 1405 South 204th Street, Suite 101.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. John Skrakis, 1550 Skylark Drive, here for Oklahoma Joe's.
Great. Thanks, John. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thanks,
passed
guys.
6-0. Item 9, to consider a Class C liquor license for Turf Club located at 2404 South 60th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Sherry Marie Gorham, 3948 Arbor Street.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passed
you.
6-0.
Thanks.
Item 10, to consider a Class C liquor license for Alpine Inn located at 10405 Calhoun Road.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
Andrew Collins of Erickson Cedarstrom Law Firm, 10330 Regency Parkway Drive, on behalf of the applicant. Just very quick background for the members of the council. This liquor license application is the product of a change in ownership. That is the product of the prior principal's estate planning. I have the daughter of the prior principal. Prior principal's name was Glenn Roby. His daughter, Kim Roby Wonder, is here. Her husband, Mick Wonder, who's the manager of the applicant and the president of the company, and Jamie, Glenn's granddaughter, are here. Operations won't change, simply a change in ownership to keep our records correct. We're here to answer any questions the council may have.
Great, thank you. And just so council members know, this is in my district, and Andrew has already confirmed that nothing will change in terms of the fried chicken or the raccoon viewing. All right, any other proponents today on number 10? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Motion a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Item 11, to consider a liquor license addition application for Baracco Wine Bar located at 2935 South 108th Street to add an indoor area.
Public hearing and vote on number 11 is today. Proponents, please. Do we have a representative for number 11 here today? Doesn't look like it. How was our time on the application?
Yeah, there is no time limit and won't advance without local approval.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 12, to consider a liquor license addition application for Virtuoso Pizzeria by David Lasole located at 6056 Maple Street to add an indoor area.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
David Lasoli, 6056 Maple Street, Virtuoso Pizzeria.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. This is also in my district, and I'm fully supportive of the back patio there. I think we had a good Benson Days this
Great
last
one.
weekend.
Yes, it was one of the better ones.
A lot going on in the city that day, but your establishment has some of the best pizza in town.
Well, thank you. We try.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank
Motion
you.
passed 6-0. Item 13, to consider a special designated liquor license application for Septemberfest Salute to Labor at CHI Center located at 455 North 10th Street, Lot D, on September 1st from 5 p.m. to midnight and September 2nd and 3rd from 12 p.m. to midnight with music until midnight each night.
Public hearing on vote on number 13 is today. Before I call for proponents, I meant to note to council members today that I did speak to Tony Burkhalter on behalf of Septemberfest, who could not be here today. But it's the same event we've seen every year. Nothing has changed, and I told him I thought it'd be fine if he was unable to come today, that the city council understands this application and certainly the event that has always gone well each year. So I will also call for proponents, but seeing none, call for opponents. Public hearing's closed. Mo- With the waiver? Motion by Bagley, second by Johnson. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Items 14 through 16 relate to the Diggs Apartments Mason, 31st and Marcy Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 14, an ordinance to rezone this property from R6 District and R7 District to R7 District. Item 15, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to a PUR overlay district. Item 16, a resolution to approve the Diggs Apartments Mason tax increment financing redevelopment project plan in amount up to $4,114,758. A is communications in opposition.
The vote on items 14, 15, and 16 are today. They've been postponed from our previous meeting. Are there any questions from council members or any lights? Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. Is the developer here?
Yeah.
Which, just need to state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Held, 11506 Nicholas Street.
Yeah, and Stephen, you know, as I've said, I've been on the fence on this. Although it appears the TOD allows you to reduce the number of parking spots that you would be required to have if you were not in a TOD space. And I think right now you're actually like 140 feet outside of the TOD. I wasn't necessarily a proponent of the TOD to begin with. However, it passed, and so now we have basically limitations and expectations for developers to build in these TODs. You meet all of the requirements. And the problem that I'm having, that I was even discussing with our director, I don't like to lay out rules and then you follow the rules and then I tell you I'm going to make a different one later after you've already followed it. I don't think that's fair to anyone, but also it's not fair to the neighborhood if we have these huge parking issues. So see where I'm trying to balance the fairness of the development versus the fairness of the neighborhood. And I'm really struggling with that. Are you able to come up with some additional parking to try and alleviate some of the parking issues that the neighborhood's concerned with?
Yeah, so since the last meeting, we did take a look at the overall site. We're considering, and we can do this in discussion with staff, but I know it's not a whole lot, but we were able to find, if we were to convert more of our stalls to compact stalls, we were able to look at incorporating 2 additional stalls. We're also considering, it's called an open parking concept. It's a common practice in the real estate industry where we would over-lease parking by a certain percentage, in this case between 10 and 30%. The assumption behind the open parking concept is that not all residents will need or use parking spaces at the same time. So I think that opens things up. And then we are also looking at partnering with Zipcar. Zipcar is a car sharing service designed specifically for people, living in apartments, urban areas. Instead of owning a car, you can use Zipcar to borrow a car whenever you need one for a few hours or a whole day. We're considering a certain number of dedicated stalls exclusively for Zipcar vehicles. And that, this is a national company that kind of partners with apartment developers and other use types, but kind of specifically for these purposes. So those are kind of the 3 things that we looked at. We're trying our best, in conjunction with the TOD and the public transport. We think, these complementary ways of dealing with parking issues kind of will help alleviate. In addition, we're also doing the bike lockers. I think we have like over 40. So we're trying to make up for that lack of parking that we have. So.
when you say that open parking, you kind of gave percentages. What were the percentages, or maybe number of stalls?
Common practice is 10 to 30%. So I think we have on site, we have 129 stalls, I believe. So I think it was anywhere from like 10 to 30 to 40 stalls that we could oversell, if that answers your question.
Yes, because I was trying to look at the number of potential stalls versus the number of apartment units. Because at least what I wanted to see is that you were going to open up the number of spots.
Yeah.
Only 2 can be had if you make them compact.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, it converts a number of more stalls to compact, and yeah, we were able to gain 2, and that was as much as we were. I tried to get more, but that was really all we could add.
And do you have any experience in building development that uses less parking?
Not at this time, no. But we've seen, at least, there's other areas in Midtown Blackstone where there's less than 1-to-1. I think there's a number of projects there in that area because it's NBD zoning, where there's parking exemption basically for projects where they've leased their units without having 1-to-1, and we've seen that be successful. We think Leavenworth, the corridor between 30th and 36th Street is kind of taking off. We think it probably will be the next Blackstone area, with activity, and so we think that there's, it's very similar to Blackstone in that respect.
Well, and I do understand that, but I have to tell you, every time I have something to go to in Blackstone, I drive home in Uber because parking's so bad that I love going there, but I try and plan ahead because I don't want to have to walk.
Sure.
I'm not one of those young people that mind walking 6 blocks. I prefer to be a lot closer to my destination.
Sure.
So I'm trying to see if we add some of these things. I think the zip car idea is interesting.
Yeah.
I know in the larger cities they're used a lot.
Yeah.
Is zip car used here at all?
I think there are a number of projects that have used it. I think my civil engineer mentioned Broadmoor at Exarban has some. Yeah, like you said, in other larger cities, they're used quite often, especially for, grocery shopping, things like that, where you'd require a car versus some of the other instances you might not need it. If you're Ubering to a restaurant or a bar in the area, like you can easily Uber there. You don't need your car. But grocery shopping is one of those, those things where, having a car for bringing your groceries in and that sort of thing is very useful, obviously. So, yeah, we think it could work really well.
Okay, well, because I'm kind of on the fence, if you can open up using open parking, that would really sway me to the side of wanting to see this development go in. I mean, and even the neighbors want to see the development go in.
Yeah.
It's the parking that's their concern.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at with it as well.
Yeah. And then those last two things that were the zip car and the open parking concept, we have flexibility. Like we can tailor it to how we're seeing things. When we're leasing, how parking is. So if we need to add more zip car, to the overall program, we can.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to say the idea here that your project is good. It's greatly needed in our community and Omaha as a whole, as we address affordable housing, as we address housing as a whole. I really want to thank you for rethinking the neighbors' concern about parking and addressing those concerns. So I will be changing my decision in terms of supporting this based upon your actions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Stephen, good afternoon. I know it's been a long several weeks for you as it has the neighbors. My position hasn't changed on this, and I respect the work you've put into this, because you get beyond, you know, the two sides of this is a developer and the neighbors, and then there's a council after you went through all your process.
Sure.
I am for building the urban core. I've stated that in previous meetings on this issue, but so people know, these decisions aren't easy. Yeah. For you got to balance respect to the neighbors, who I spend a lot of time with, as most of my colleagues do that often. And you know, there's finger pointing, or there's things I'm sure they say about everybody involved in this, but I do want to say that I think you've been fair, and there's a learning curve for everybody, and maybe some things presented late in this process to you that you probably learned from. And I learn every day in this seat, but I'm not going to support it, not because I've supported other developments you've had in that same area, but for the reason I stated before, without prolonging that, I'm going to maintain my position not to support this, but I appreciate the time you put in. And I also want to thank the planning department, because Dave and his team, they took a lot of time to work with me on this and fill in a lot of gaps, and my gut at the end of the day is my position today. But it wasn't because I wasn't educated on everything, and you were fair then, so were the neighbors. Pat O'Donnell especially, he took time to show me around the neighborhood and the specific issues, and I just wanted to put that on the record for these items here today, and thanks again.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Clearly the demographics of today's renter is different than it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, even on the way down here this morning, I heard on media that 40% of the young people that are eligible for a driver's license don't even pursue a driver's license. So my question was, the last time that we met, we talked about you were going to lease spaces. The parking spaces would be leased in addition to their normal rent, right?
Yes.
So now when you're telling me that you're going to overbook that by 30%, that one kind of doesn't resonate with me as much as the other, because I got the impression that if you were coming to fill out an application from your company and you told them, I'm out of parking, you're taking the risk that they just walk and go somewhere else,
right,
where they can park. Now when you add 30% buffer in there, I'm a little confused by that. Can you speak to that a little bit more, what your rationale was there?
Yeah, so the thought is, and I think the city of Omaha does this with their parking garages, you know, in any given night, you know, there might be 5 to 10 stalls that aren't utilized. So there's some inefficiency with parking. By having this, by overselling, which again, these percentages are pretty common when they are looked at, and you can do it either way. We're still considering, we have the flexibility if we want to do that or not, and we're definitely going to take it under serious consideration, is that you can benefit and make your parking more efficient. So, you know, a nurse might be working overnights and she might never need, he or she might never need a parking stall, you know, from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. You know, people might be staying over, you know, at their parents' house or their boyfriend or girlfriend's house. So I think there's instances where it makes a lot of sense to be looking at this this open parking concept in conjunction with kind of the normal way that it's done with a lot of apartments. So,
well, I'm in support of developing the urban core. I think I've said that plenty of times, and I think the only way to make that really work is with better use of transit.
Yep.
I think we've got that within walking distance of this project, so I appreciate that. And I agree with Councilmember Johnson. We need the apartments. We
Yep.
need the housing because we are short, not only in the urban core but all across the city. So appreciate your willingness to take the risk and build the project, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues too for laying this over on July 11th. I think we had kind of a short council that day, and I was out of town on vacation, and I was telling Council President Festerson of course, what do other people do on their vacation? They watch a city council meeting. So that's what I was doing on Tuesday of my vacation, and watching it, and appreciated all the comments, both from the opponents as well as the proponents of the project. But we, as Council Member Melton said, I mean, we did adopt the TOD zoning. The rules of the road are kind of in place, and we've asked the developers or the development community that, if they want to do certain things, that they have to live by the rules of whatever that zoning would allow. And I think that's what we're doing here. It's interesting too. I was going to bring up the open parking concept. Yes, as Stephen said, the city does that. We overbook and our parking facilities because at any given time a certain percentage are not going to be used. And to Mr. Rowe's question about how do you market that, or how do you do that? Well, that's I guess I have two answers to that, or I'll answer maybe on behalf of you if that's okay. That's the market's going to determine that.
Yeah.
If I'm a renter and I'm coming to you and I like your apartment or I like your property, and you say, oh, by the way, we have parking available, but know that we oversell our parking by a certain percentage, and it's going to be, if you were selling a reserve stall, it would be probably X.
Yep.
If you were selling an overbooked stall, it would probably be X minus Y.
Yep.
And the market will determine where that equilibrium is.
Yep.
And we have to remember too that this is allowed. What's being presented to us today is allowed by right, and it is therefore the risk of the developer whether or not his or her project is going to be successful. And part of that might be determined by the parking. And if it's determined after some point in time that it's not working, then you're going to have to adjust your rents, and your ROI is going to be different. So I think what we've asked of the developer in this case is what the rules that we voted on, and if it's not successful, then that's your risk. To your point, Mr. Rowe, too, about we need to address our housing issues, and density is certainly one of the things that we have to look at in addressing. That's one of the ways that we can get to a solution. I think I've heard my director friend from planning say many times before that our developable land within Douglas County probably has about another 20 years or so left on that clock. And so we've got to find different ways to build density. And I'm reminded of an op-ed piece that Congressman Flood from Nebraska's 1st District wrote some time ago saying, we've got to quit talking about NIMBY, which is not in my backyard, and start talking about YIMBY, which is yes in my backyard. So there are some cultural changes that we will be challenged with here in Omaha that we have to be real about. And density is certainly one of those issues. If we want to continue to grow our city and maintain the level of services that we provide to the taxpayers, that's the reality we live in. So I will be supportive of this, but I will throw this last caveat in, is that if people want to see changes to the TOD zoning or others, those are things that we're going to have to grow into and see what works and see what doesn't work. And I think the planning department and the planning board and this council will be open to having those conversations. So if something's not working in the future, then we'll have to make some adjustments. But at this time, we know what the rules are, and you are complying by those, so I will be supportive of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also support transit-oriented development. I've seen how it has worked in other communities. And I think it is important we are abiding by our own zoning codes, but then also show a commitment to density in the urban core. I appreciate what the council members have done the last few weeks to really dive into this issue and particular issues surrounding This application, I drove it early on with Councilmember Bagley and was there again last Friday. And I think the analysis we've completed is good and is solid. The one thing I would add that I don't think has gotten conversation yet, but is also important to this picture, is public transit. We've also heard from Metro around this site, and I just want it to be known that there is 3 bus routes very close to this project. Route 11 is within 500 feet, Route 35 is within 500 feet, and then Route 15 is within a quarter mile. So as we think about how public transit impacts these things in the future too, and seek to expand public transit, which I think we must do, is an important part of this equation. And then the last thing I would just mention, I don't think Mr. O'Donnell is here today, but I wanted to say a word about him. I spoke to a group recently of residents and nonprofits with the premise being, what's the best way to engage city governments and city council members and things they care about and the issues they're working on. And I would say today, reach out to Mr. O'Donnell. He knows what he was doing. He was very effective. This may not go his way today, but his engagement was very much appreciated. His passion for the neighborhood and commitment to his neighborhood was evident. He came with the facts, talked factually with council members, spent time with council members before the item even came to our agenda, and came to these meetings to express his points of view. And I think it was very well done on his part, and I encourage you to stay in contact with him as the project proceeds. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. O'Donnell had a medical issue we had to deal with family, or he would have been here today. So I appreciate and I second the sentiments that you said about him. He engaged and was respectful, irregardless of how the vote goes. And that's to be commended, and hopefully people can learn from that's the way to engage your elected officials in your government. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. There's no further lights. Is there a motion? There's a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Items 17 and 18 can be considered together for property located northwest of 13th and Pine Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 17, an ordinance to rezone this property from GI District to MBD District. Item 18, an ordinance to approve a PUR overlay district and an MBD district.
Items 17 and 18 were postponed from the July 25th meeting. The vote is today. Is there any lights from council members or further questions? I'm not seeing any. If there's not any lights, is there a motion? Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 19, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located at 14441 and 14505 DuPont Court. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communication in opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hosley with E&A Consulting Group, representing the applicant, 10909 Mill Valley Road. Previously, the Planning Board had approved a conditional use permit to allow this multifamily project within this commercial zoning. As part of the city's request, they are requesting that we put an MCC overlay to go along with this project, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 20, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located northwest of Big Elk Parkway and West Maple Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Trevor Veskerna with TD2 Engineering, 10836 Old Mill Road, here representing the applicant, St. Patrick's Church of Elkhorn. We'd previously applied for a conditional use permit, and the city requested that we add on an MCC overlay with that conditional use permit. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 21, a resolution to approve the Highlander 5 Davis Ridge Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located northwest of 31st Street and Patrick Avenue in an amount up to $501,775.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. The Highlander Phase 5 Davis Ridge project is the 5th phase of the Highlander project. It's also the 4th phase of the city's HUD CNI grant project. It's Choice Neighborhood Initiative. So the city is actually kind of a partner in this project. This is a mixed income, affordable housing development located just next to Prospect Hill Cemetery, just to the east of it, this 5th phase. It is a mixed income, affordable housing development. It involves the new construction of 41 residential units. They'll be arranged in 7 3-story buildings on the site. Got a flat elevation and a rendered perspective. The developer is Brinshore Development, managed by Todd Lieberman. Total project investment in the area is about a little north of $18 million. The TIF support for the project is $501,775. This project meets the required criteria of the TIF program. It's an appropriate land use for the area. It complies with the goals of the city's master plan, and really it helps strengthen North Omaha, I believe. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Hello, Bill Lukash, Brinshore Development, 903 South 184th Avenue Circle. It's a pleasure to be here. Don, thanks. You did all the hard work for me. Happy to answer any questions you might have about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. First of all, this is a welcome addition to North Omaha, but I just want to pretty much like kind of tee you up, if you will, for the vote. As I was perusing through different literature yesterday, I came across this information, and I wonder if you could offer some answers to my question. In an Affordable Housing Action Plan required of Nebraska cities by legislator, the city of Omaha reported that nearly 30,000 housing units are needed in Douglas County by 2030. And 60% of that need is for affordable units where housing and utility expenses cost no more than 30% of income. The report said that about 7,000 rental units will need to be priced below $1,000 a month for households making less than $50,000. So my question is, while this statement is general in nature, it doesn't really tell us if this unit is going to apply this formula to this development. So I was hoping you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, and it's a very good one. Excuse me. There are 41 units in this development, and 71% or so 28 of the units are affordable to households earning 60% area median income or less. Furthermore, 13 of those 28 units will be reserved for former Spencer Homes residents who will be using preferred for Spencer Home residents who will be using a project-based voucher. And in those cases, if they are using the voucher, then no more than 30% of their household income would go towards rent. And that's the absolute maximum. If they afford less, then that's what they would pay for rent at this housing development.
Thank you. Now, I have a few more questions. This is for purposes of growth and knowledge in this community. How does this project align with the city long-term goals and development plans? Maybe Don can answer that if you're not able to.
Well, it's up to Don. I'll take a stab at it. So first of all, this development is in line with the City of Omaha's housing element of the master plan. It's supported by the outcomes or what the city's affordable housing action plan sort of wants to see develop, density. There's got to be a mix of not only for sale housing, but rental housing. Not everybody's ready for home ownership, so this is an opportunity for that. It's a mix of incomes, so there's market rate units, affordable units, and then some units that will be available to people with project-based vouchers. It's in a great site. It's quality housing. It's to a high standard. It's presented in the consolidated plan as a way to the City of Omaha Planning Department's 2018 to 2023 consolidated plan that addresses the need to target certain neighborhoods, the NRSA, the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy areas. So it addresses all of those elements. And of course, the North 30th Street Transformation Plan, in which the City of Omaha and the Housing Authority received a $25 million grant to support in 2019, I'm sorry.
Great, so I would be remiss if I wasn't concerned about economy, the economic development and growth in this community. So how will this project contribute to that?
Yeah, so primarily employment and rent, of course. Affordable rents would be the main thing that people aren't going to be housing burdened if they live here. Also, employment would be something that we would look at. We anticipate that, I think I put in the TIF application that we estimate approximately 43 jobs, construction jobs will be sustained or created here. Sam Johnson and Harding, you both were able to attend some of our contractor outreach events that we had up at the Accelerator. So thank you so much for attending those and seeing how we try to get Section 3 businesses or MBEs or WBEs involved in these housing projects that we're developing. And we had over 23 contractors attend the one for this on January 10th, which was a great turnout. And then Brester Construction is the general contractor for this, and they are working, I'm counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different firms that were recruited out of that event to participate. And I think, I don't know exactly what trades they're in, but I know they're not just insignificant trades, right? I think one of them mentioned was a drywaller. Well, there's a lot of drywall that would have to be put in this. So I think that this is an exact, excuse me, let me rephrase that. This is an example of the impact that we're trying to make with this.
Okay. Now, how will the development benefit the local community? You already talked about jobs and things like that and the opportunity to have homes.
Yeah.
Will there be any amenities or services provided in this area based upon this development?
Yeah, at Highlander, of course, there's already some amenities in place. I don't remember all of the different amenities affiliated with this particular development. I know there's community garden, or at least some gardening spot, I think. Let me not say I'm sure, but I think there's some gardening opportunities for people that live there. Across the street, of course, is the Highlander Accelerator, where you have Hardy Coffee, Metro Community College, 75 North, of course. Big Mama's is over there, the sandwich shop that I always forget the name of. I apologize about that. But and then across the street from there, I know that there are some opportunities, maybe the Nebraska, I'm not sure which organization it is, but there are commercial opportunities across the street. Charles Drew is very close by, of course. Salem Baptist Church is right across the street from this site. So there are a number of things in the area that are amenities for people residing here. And of course, the sense of community, because that whole area, since redevelopment, it's much more of a feel of a neighborhood. I was recently at Highlander 4, which we are getting to lease up here fairly soon, and standing on the second story of those buildings, looking out over the street, it really felt like it was a neighborhood and not just a bunch of random housing units there. So it really feels like a community around Highlander, and I really think it's great.
Thank you. And what are the estimated costs of the development, and how will the TIF funding be utilized?
Yeah, what was that number, Don? 18 million?
18 million, a little bit more than that.
Yeah, and 18 million, I mean, the TIF funds go into the construction cost. I mean, we need those funds to help support the development.
Okay. Will the development impact any existing infrastructure such as roads, utilities, and public services?
No, everything's in place there. We just have to connect to the utilities already in place. And it is redeveloping or developing a site that has been vacant for forever, as far as I know. Well, not forever. I don't know how long that piece of land's been vacant adjacent to Prospect Hill Cemetery, but it's been a while.
Okay. And will you be responsible for any necessary upgrades or modification to accommodate the development?
The development team will be responsible, yes.
Okay. And what type of community engagement did you provide for that community?
Yeah, so there's kind of been a long history of engagement with 75 North, the City of Omaha, the Omaha Housing Authority, and Rinshore Development participating in that. Going all the way back to the time of the application. There's been, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but there have been multiple opportunities for engagement, both at the Buffett Early Learning Center and then at the Highlander Accelerator. The contractor outreach events, for example, is not necessarily just about neighborhood engagement, but we try to hit different segments to educate people about these. One of the main things that we do, for example, is try to provide newsletters and updates on the status of our North 30th Street transformation plan. Those go out regularly, At the contractor outreach event, for example, we provide everybody a summary of where we're at in the process. So we do try to do a lot of outreach with these, 75 North being our key neighborhood partner in this area.
Cool. Now, how will the city, maybe Don can answer this, how will the city monitor and ensure the proper use of TIF funding and adherence to proposed plans? And then will there be regular progress reports and updates on the development given?
We stay close in touch with all of our TIF developers to see how projects are progressing. This is an excerpt from the TIF committee staff report. It lists the proposed uses of the TIF eligible costs. We do tell our developers that there is a possibility that they would be randomly selected for a detailed audit of how they use the TIF funds. So, they need to keep this in mind when they're processing their project or proceeding with their project. I would also note that this TIF eligible cost table from the TIF committee report is incorporated as Exhibit E in the ultimate TIF agreement that we bring to you for approval.
Okay.
So you have this in the official public permanent record twice.
Okay.
Once in the project plan and once in the TIF agreement.
Okay, yeah, I saw all of that. Question for you. There are lots of funding options. So why was TIF chosen?
Well, there are a lot of funding sources in this development. Off the top of my head, we have CDBG-DR, Choice Neighborhood Funds, Home Funds, Qualified Census Tract Funds through the state of Nebraska, philanthropic funds, a private loan, and TIF. And it's just because I don't know how else to say it, but some of those funding sources can only go up so high and provide so much funding, and we have to get every available source that we can. And TIF is a great tool to help us out, get across those final barriers to find the funding to develop the project.
Thank you. And Don had something.
Don Seaton, City Planning. I might add on to that this is an $18 million project for the total cost, and they're estimating a final taxable value of approximately $3.4 million. You cannot build affordable housing without some assistance and some subsidies. So it's important for this project.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to pick your brain, if you will. I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
Motion to
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 22, a resolution to approve the Blue Stem Prairie Second Edition Phase 1 and 2 Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located north of Forest Lawn Avenue and Newport Avenue in an amount up to $7,008,455.
Public hearing and vote on number 22 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Don Seaton, City Planning. If you give me just a moment here. Blue Stem Prairie, this is a Habitat for Humanity affordable housing project. It's located southwest of Forest Lawn Cemetery. Actually, when I say phases, this north part is the project we're looking at now, and that's a two-phase project. This that I have labeled as phase 1, that's actually the first edition, which is a different project, also Habitat, that's underway now. Anyway, this involves a large swath of largely undeveloped land, formerly known as Scatterjoy Acres. That first edition that's already a TIF project will have about 85 new homes. The project we're looking at today is a two-phase project. They'll bring an additional 112 single-family homes. I would note that this is, here's some sample elevations. This project is located in an extremely blighted area, so we are supporting a 20-year term for the project. Total project investment for both phases is about $49.3 million. The TIF support for phase 1, $3,971,458, and the TIF support for phase 2, $3,036,997. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today?
Ken Marr with Habitat for Humanity, 1701 North 24th Street.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Hi, how are you today?
Good.
Good. I have pretty much the same questions that I had earlier regarding TIF project that we just discussed.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask how is this aligning with the city long-term goals and development plans?
Well, like you had reviewed some of the numbers from a rental standpoint, but really from an ownership standpoint, there's still a shortage of 30,000 homes. Even though this really 112 homes, 87 in the first phase, it's right around 200. It's really just scratching the surface. But really, what it does is it really provides the advocacy and let's say the energy towards why affordable housing is so important. And affordable housing really falls between the $15 and $29 an hour job, and we all know that's, my daughter is a 5th grade teacher. She makes $50,000 a year. She would qualify. So a lot of those constraints fall into, how do you identify or define affordable housing? And in most cases, it's really, geez, is it really affordable or is it entry level? And we know that entry level is going away as well. So that kind of all goes into the confluence of how we identify that.
So that 30% cap income, how many of these units will fall into that category?
Well, the properties will sell probably in the range, we won't know until we go to market. We'll probably sell in the range between $240,000 to $270,000, and that's just an early estimate. With our down payment assistance programs and through donations that Habitat generates, we're able to drive those costs down to in the range of between $160,000 to $180,000, depending on the income of the family. So we work with families between the 40% to 80% AMI and really everything, everything in between that qualifies a family to live in a habitat home. So using down payment assistance and other programs, we're able to drive the average rental or the average mortgage cost right around $1,100 to $800 a month in principal and interest.
Cool. Now, what are the benefits? We talked a little bit earlier about economics. This project, what will this development bring to this community from an economic standpoint?
From an economic standpoint, it really it's just what we've talked about earlier. It's a generation of affordable housing, right. Are you talking about jobs creation,
construction, that
so kind of job creation is minimal, only in regards to, we use volunteers to build our homes. So we have one superintendent and 10 to 15 volunteers every day that show up and build their homes, along with our families that come in and put sweat equity in.
So I think I read somewhere where, in terms of the construction, that most of the work done as it relates to construction is done by your organization. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And what about the benefits to the local community and residents as it relates to what's nearby? Because when I don't see very much nearby in that area in terms of goods and services and things like that.
Right.
What amenities will this development bring about?
Well, hopefully it brings density. The density will bring buying power in regards to just what's in the area. I think if you continue up Sorensen Parkway and you get to eventually 72nd over by Roncalli High School, that's probably, when you talk about services, that's kind of the next real large established services area. So, but that's really up to, like we talk about it a lot, but it's really for someone to invest in that area, knowing that there's going to be 200 plus families moving into the area.
And so have you had any engagement with the residents about your new phase here?
We have. We've had listening sessions with neighbors and with families, prospective families, both at Eagles Nest Church, which is right there on Sorensen, as well as at Wakanda. We've led some listening sessions as well. So,
thank you for your time, and I'll go ahead and support this as a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
This motion and a second. I'll just say I support this project too. I appreciate your work. It's been amazing to see the transformation of what was the old Wintergreen apartment site into what you're showing us here, and great to see an expansion of that work happening and literally changing the lives of the families you're touching with single-family homes, and an important part of our affordable housing picture.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Ken, thanks for all your work. I have to abstain on this, but love the investment and the interest in the area and the catalyst that this really will be for further development.
Right. Thanks, Becker.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. Harding abstains. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
There's been a request to remove item number 23 from this consent agenda, so we'll do that. And first take item number 24, which had its public hearing on July 25th.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve item number 24. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
So the public hearing on number 23 was already held. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I think Don, if you don't mind answering a few questions. This property here at 2816 Ames, I saw some language in the documentation about redevelopment loan. Can you explain what that's all about?
talking about the redevelopment loan of the TIF loan. Oh, this is the formal TIF agreement between the city and the developer, whereby they use their TIF proceeds that are generated by the additional value of the project to then pay off the loan that they monetize using the TIF approval.
Is that done all the time, or?
Usually.
Okay.
Some people with deep pockets may self-finance their own TIF, but usually when you're approved for TIF, you look at how much money is that going to generate each year and work backwards over 15 years or 20 to get to a total amount of a loan given a certain interest rate. They monetize it up front with a bank loan.
That's interesting. Is that product or that opportunity, is that marketed very well to everyone? Is that just common knowledge if someone could do that if they were looking at investing in North Omaha? Just asking for, because we have a lot of vacant land and we have lots of buildings that need to be brought up to standards or even brought into existence. I'm just wondering if there are people that are connecting with me, if they're aware of this tool that they could possibly.
We do what we can for outreach. We've got our website. We meet with local service groups to talk, Bridget and myself, to talk about the TIF program. Our annual report each year is really a big item where we highlight all the big projects, big and small projects. They're all important in their own way. We do what we can to raise awareness of TIF in the community. And there's certainly been a great deal of media coverage of TIF in general and TIF projects in particular ongoing. So it seems to be pretty well known. It's even been in the Reader.
So do you go about looking for individuals to invest in North Omaha using non-traditional ways?
No, it's really not city government's position to go out and try to sell properties or private property. That's more of a type of thing you might see from a chamber of commerce.
Okay.
We're not trying to advocate for a particular parcel here or there.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Motion to approve.
Motion and second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 25 through 29 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. This is 25 through 29. Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Oh, is there a speaker? Yep, come on down, Larry. 25 through 29.
Larry Storr, 5115 Lafayette Avenue, 68132. I'm sort of opposed to number 29. I fail to apprehend why a lot of businesses in performing arts, community partners, all of a sudden need money for physical plan or various things. This doesn't really spell out what it's for. I didn't have time to go online to read it. But, aren't we breaking the bank by giving every business that asks for something money out of ARPA, fiscal recovery? These are things that businesses used to budget for themselves. But yeah, it's a community-supported partner, I guess, so they can come and ask for money. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further testifiers, the public hearings are closed. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. And this is money that is coming from the ARPA funds. We're very limited as to what we can use it for. The performing arts is something that we could use it for, which then benefits actually all the citizens of Omaha. And so I think it's a great use because it's something that does not just one area, it actually benefits everyone throughout our city. So I do think that this is a good use of the ARPA funds. I think we heard this morning that we just had a couple, 5-6 million that was just kind of left over of the ARPA funds that we received. If we don't use them, we send them back to the federal government, I would assume, and then another city would get to use them. So I would rather keep them here and allow them to benefit the people here, since the citizens of Omaha are the ones contributing to the tax fund and to the federal tax pot. Although we, the city council, can't change that, I would rather see the city of Omaha use the funds. So that's why I'm supporting this. Thank you. Nothing further.
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to really give a shout out to the Omaha Performing Arts because they are an integral part of our community and they do great works. I do want to mention, as we discussed in pre-council, an update on these funds because it's been a while since we visited this, and so I would be curious, or just for purposes of clarity, I'm looking for an update on that, and so we just want to make that as a point of reference to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to approve.
Is motion to approve in a second? And Mr. Curtis, along the lines of Councilmember Johnson's last remarks, an updated balance of the city's ARPA funds were provided to the City Council just before our meeting. I'm not going to ask you to go through everything, but could you just provide a short update or a short summary of that spreadsheet you sent us and the remaining balance?
Steve Curtis, City Finance. There hasn't been a whole lot of movement other than, as it was noted, I think the last time the council got an update, there probably was about $6 million that was unused. Since that time, $3 million was allocated towards the OPA. It's their educational center that they're going to start working on to the east side of the Steelhouse, or the east side of their current Holland Center. There is also a BID program that's well underway. We are still vetting that, and I should say Deloitte has taken the lead in that. And we don't have a final for you yet, but that'll be $2 million. I don't remember if OEDC was on the list that you had seen originally, but what you were provided today gets down to about 600,000 or so that is still unallocated. And then we're preparing for the reality that some may come back, in that there were community grants and other things where somebody may not be able to perform, and the money won't be allocated to them, and we'll keep you up to date as we find out about those.
Thank you. And the thing with these funds are, as Ms. Melton observed, there are a lot of requirements around them, and they can only be spent in very specific ways. And one of the requirements is, should there still be about a $700,000 balance, those funds would need to be expended by the end of 2024, right?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to speak a little bit to this as well. When the ARPA money was distributed to the city of Omaha, there were specific uses that could be used for, and it was primarily centered around challenges due to the pandemic. And the pandemic significantly impacted the OPA's ability to move forward on that additional building. They incurred about a $7 million shortfall just because of the delays. I'm sure it was supply chain issues and just pandemic influences. So I think this is just a small portion that we can help them with that with those losses, and it's an appropriate use of the ARPA money.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second for these items. No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 30, an ordinance to approve a real estate purchase and sale agreement with Enterprise Industrial Park, LLC for the transfer and sale of property located at 1410 Locust Street.
The public hearing and vote on number 30 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Cheryl Weston, 1299 Front Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm here because I don't believe that all the true information has been put out about this. I know that it's going to pass and all that from the previous or this morning's pre-conference. And it was stated then that you were going to be doing your due diligence on all the costs. But I live in that area and I know the problems. I don't think it's been put out completely to the public about what it's going to cost to clean that up. So although the city is paying $12 million right now, or they will get it reduced, what about the cost that it's going to cost to clean that up? And who's going to pay for that cost to clean it up, other than probably will be the citizens of Omaha? So that is one of my main objections, is that I just don't think this has been fairly put out, that the price is going to be just $12 million. It should be everything else that's included. And basically that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Ms. Taylor, if you could answer Ms. Weston's concern about the cost as it relates to the cleanup, to the environment.
Good afternoon. Jennifer Taylor, City Law Department. Once the purchase agreement is approved here, we have either 60 or 90 days to conduct due diligence. Our due diligence period is the point of time where the city can actually study both the condition of the property, environmental conditions. Also, it is the time in which we can learn more about what it might cost to remediate certain portions or all portions of the property that we're going to acquire. It is not information that we have specifically today. It is information that we will learn and garner from what materials we have available to us over the next 60 to 90 days. At that point in time, the city can make a decision on its own in its sole discretion whether or not to proceed to close on the property and acquire it or terminate the agreement. We do not have that cost information today. That is the point of the due diligence period. We will acquire that knowledge and that information over the next several months.
Thank you. So today we are just addressing the purchase?
Today the approval is the purchase agreement. Okay. And that is the document that allows us to acquire that due diligence information, for the seller of the property to be prohibited from conducting any other transactions with regard to the property while we conduct that due diligence. And then it sets the terms for which we can either terminate the agreement or proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Milton.
Don't go anywhere. And I think these are good questions, and I appreciate it. I had a long briefing with you, to where I asked a lot of questions, and I benefited from questions I didn't think to ask that Mr. Harding asked. And so when you're doing these purchase agreements, this is a purchase agreement. If you can't go in and do any of that, what you call due diligence, basically it's now you can go in and figure out how much it's going to cost. So and I'm just hypothetically, if it comes back and, well, it's going to cost another $12 million just to clean up, you can say, then forget it. So this is your opportunity to actually figure out the question and answer the question of Ms. Weston, and then determine is this the right price for us? Do we need to potentially ask for a lower price, or is this what we anticipated? And because also this property we anticipate selling to the developer, correct? We would like to get our money back.
Correct.
So this isn't something we're just buying and giving away. This is something we're buying and hopefully selling.
Correct. And to be clear, we are not going to be able to have access to any of the title information, the due diligence information we have received without this agreement. So the seller is not going to give the city or any other buyer that information without having some agreement in place that dictates the terms under which the purchase would occur, or that also prohibits that seller from conducting any other transactions with any other people. This agreement is what allows us to go forward, conduct this diligence. We have already made arrangements to have engineers review the information with us. We've made arrangements through the planning department and the mayor's office to have someone analyze what it would cost to remediate the property and how it could be developed. All of that will be done over the next 60 to 90 days.
Is that standard for commercial property purchases? This is in the normal course of business for these types of property purchases?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. I have nothing further.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm okay with the move to move forward on the purchase agreement with the knowledge and the understanding that if this venture becomes quite costly and the risk far outweighs the community's health, then I would go ahead and move to approve this, but knowing that if those two factors should happen to occur, I would be the first to join in the bandwagon to abort.
Okay, so that's a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Jen, I'll thank you as well for the briefing that was pretty thorough and filled in a lot of the blanks that today I'm comfortable supporting this going forward, and we'll look forward to future reports on this as the process goes. So I appreciate your help on this.
Of course.
Thanks, Mr. President.
I'll support this today too. I've had a long interaction with this site, about 10 years, not nearly as long as the surrounding residents, however. And at the time, we really raised the issue of concern about illegal dumping that happened on this site and the environmental conditions at this site. And why it is at the time the State Department of Environmental Quality didn't take action or require that responsible party to clean up this site is something I don't understand. But I do appreciate the council's inquiries as to the environmental reports that happened subsequently and your attention to that as well. I'll support this because I think it is a move to get it into productive reuse and potentially to clean up those issues better than they have been handled so far. But I would request also you keep us informed during this transitional time period before a commitment is irreversible, so we understand those liabilities and how the city and then a developer intends to go about making that better. And I know the state has interest in redeveloping this site too. I know Senators McKinney and Wayne were here earlier, and I know they've got their eye on it too to make it better. So I'm hopeful that working together we can get that accomplished.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Sorry about that. I thought it was important too, and I wanted to note that Senators McKinney and Wayne were here too, but it looks like they had to leave and have an interest in this. But there's also a benefit we haven't even discussed about what this gives us the opportunity to do, and that's with the rerouting of truck traffic that currently goes through the north part of our downtown and isn't very conducive for continued development if you're having those interactions or those I guess almost I'll say collisions with the commercial development as well as the commercial transport of goods. And what this will give us the opportunity to do, if we're able to move forward on this, is to have an alternate truck route so that it takes it away from that area so that we can encourage future development within that area. And again, that'll grow our tax base. And I think these are all benefits that I think should be noted as to why we're even considering looking at this ground so that we can have this alternate truck route.
Correct.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 31, a resolution to approve the nomination of Dorothy McGuire Ridge as a commemorative street name on 38th Avenue from Jones Street to Jackson Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 31 is today. Proponents, please. Any representatives of Dorothy McGuire here today? Please come down.
Hi, I'm Zach Shonka, originally from Omaha.
Microphone there.
Right here. Hi, I'm Zach Shonka, originally from Omaha, Nebraska, but moved to Atlanta, Georgia to pursue an acting and film career. And I'm also responsible for the renaming of Montgomery Cliff Street and Nick Nolte Lane. And one thing that the city of Omaha never talks about is Omaha's home to some really well-respected names. Along with Dorothy McGuire, we also have Fred Astaire, Henry Fonda, as I mentioned, Montgomery Cliff, Marlon Brando, Nick Nolte, and hope to soon be big names Gabrielle Union, Adam Devine, and then, of course, we can't forget our glorious director, Alexander Payne, which Alexander Payne films always put me in a good mood. I mean, maybe Omaha should let their citizens know that we're from a mini talent city.
Yeah, and your address too, please, for the record? I don't think I got that.
Say that again?
Your address for the record too?
515 Ansley Drive, Roswell, Georgia.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you. I know we've corresponded in the past about some of the street namings and your passion for that.
Yeah.
So my question for you would be, have you been in contact with any of Dorothy McGuire's relatives or friends? Or?
Nope, I haven't been in contact with any of the stars from Omaha yet, but hopefully one day, so.
Okay. Well, as we talked about, I think it was around Nick Nolte Street at the time, just to encourage you to make sure you're doing that as well when you're pursuing these notable names. And also, I'm sure you're engaging the council members whose district these are residing in, but neighbors too, when these things come up, to make sure they're involved too.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Were you a proponent?
Actually, I was.
You can come up if you want.
I don't know if this is the proper time, but.
If you're a proponent, you can speak now, or if you're an opponent, you can speak next.
He's new to the process.
Yeah, I was going to talk about something different.
Can't be something different. It has to be to this street naming.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Are there any opponents to number 31? All right, public hearing's closed. Mr. Bagley, what's your light on?
Motion approved.
Thank you. And I'll note that she was a Central High graduate, too. All right. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Yes. Melton. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 32, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Gilson Software Solutions, LLC, in the estimated annual amount of $10,480 for the telephone answering service to be utilized by the Street Maintenance Division.
Public hearing on number 32 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 33, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement for South Farm located northwest of 144th and Pine Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 33 is today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hazy, E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the applicant. The piece of property that we are looking at today is in the southwest corner of 144th. It's here, and there's Pacific Street. It's part of the existing South Farm mixed-use agreement. We are talking about the south 22 acres. Previously, the mixed-use agreement showed that as retail, multifamily, and some single-family homes. This project is proposing 222 single-family typical detached. This is an example of those homes. There's also some townhomes. Here's some architectural renderings of the townhomes, and then what we are calling direct access multifamily as well. There'll be a pretty even mix of all the different product types. All these uses will be for rent products. The purpose of this project is to provide a walkable and bikeable residences for the growing number of office and retail spaces within this area. With that, I'll make myself available for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 34, can we just do 34? Oh, that was 30, okay. Item 34, an ordinance to approve the 7101 Mercy Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Agreement.
Public hearing on number 34 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Don Seaton, City Planning Department, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Thank you, Mr. President. Brent Beller, 1140 Western Road, on behalf of the applicant, here for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 34? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 35, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 42899 to change the lease provider from PNC Equipment Finance to Farmers Trust and Savings Bank.
Public hearing on number 35 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Items 36 through 62 do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:50.